Hi, today we are on the beautiful Palo Alto in the office of Tipalti. Hi Chen, who are you and what do you do?
Tipalti is a mass payment service provider. We help companies who do mass payments. These would be marketplaces, advertising networks, affiliate networks, e-commerce, and any company that has a large volume of payments. Those companies share a set of challenges and pains, and it starts with just managing the workflow. So if you have many payments to many payees globally, just knowing who you paid when, what succeeded, what failed, communicating with the payees, communicating with your systems, all that is a challenge in itself. But the more complex challenge is to making sure that you pay those individuals around the world in a payment method that is efficient, timely, and is the right method for these individuals. When you need to make a payment in the US, it's easy. You have what's called the ACH network and PayPal and other networks which are very efficient. But if you, as a US company or any other company from any other place in the world, and you need to make global payments, you need to tap into the domestic networks that are available in the target country. You need to know what the regulator in that country requires, what currency the payee wants to get paid in, what currency you want to make the payment in. The e-wallet, PayPal is strong in some markets. There are other e-wallets in other markets. Some people want to get paid by check. In less developed countries, they want to get paid via prepaid debit cards or cash on delivery. So supporting all these wide range of payment methods is really an undertaking that our customers it's unrealistic to expect them to take that, and they default to some mediocre solution before they work with Tipalti. On top of that, you need to be compliant with IRS requirements, W-9, W-8, tax withholding, treaty management, a whole slew of challenges over there. And then you need to make sure that you're making payments to good actors, that you're not involved in money laundering, drug trafficking, financing, or terror financing. And you need to screen those payees, know your customer processes, and so on and so forth. There are a host of challenges that our customers face, and we solve all of these challenges in a very, very frictionless way. Frictionless in the sense that to benefit from Tipalti, you need one line of code in your supplier, partner, payee website. That one line of code allows Tipalti to look like it's part of your website, white labeled completely, but interact with the payee, with the supplier, get all the information required, present the payment options that are available in that country, validate the information per what the regulator in that country requires, do all the other processes that I mentioned. And when you need to make a payment, you just tell us, please pay X that amount, and we already know how to complete the process. You had to invest no effort to do that. We are frictionless also in the sense that we communicate with the payee on your behalf. So we will send an email from payments@ourcustomer.com telling them that we just sent a payment. It will be in your bank account the day after tomorrow. This transaction reference number, this validate. So reducing the anxiety level on the other side, waiting for the funds to arrive. And many of our customers push the cost of the transaction to the payee. And since Tipalti is predominantly transaction-based, the business model is predominantly transaction-based, it means that the cost of working with Tipalti is very low as well. So it's very frictionless from all of those aspects. And if you as a customer have a sense of the pain, some global payments, more than 100 payments, and some global, you're already in a world of pain, and we will be a great solution for you.
Chen, your background story is very interesting. Can you give us a little bit more insights in what did you do before and what made you start this company in the first place?
Sure. Almost all of my career was in entrepreneurial phases. So I started in telecom space, building business units around telecom areas in the 90s. That was back in the 90s. The latter part of the 90s, I built an ADSL business for what became the second largest ADSL provider in the world at that time. I then was an active board member in a couple of companies, one in the security space and the other in mobile messaging. I then co-founded a company in the business intelligence space. Before Tipalti, I was the CEO of another telecommunication company that we sold to Nokia Siemens back in 2008. So a lot of entrepreneurial work, and Tipalti is the culmination of all that career.
But how did it start? Because there was an interesting story with a friend of you.
Sure. After selling that last company I mentioned, I took some time off and later told a friend of mine that I was ready to go back into the game. And he later called me and said that one of his portfolio companies had a pain. That friend is Oren Zeev, who's a very well respected investor here in the Bay Area. And the company was an ad network that needed to pay their publishers regularly. They have tens of thousands of publishers and needed to make regular payments. And the founder of that company was expressing a pain. He said, I'm making all these payments. It takes days every month to do that. And half jokingly told my co-founder, my friend, that if he and his entrepreneurs friends started a company, they would have their first customer. So him and I went and met this company and understood the pain completely. I had no background, neither in payments, no in internet, advertising, nothing of that sort. But the pain sounded very relevant, very reasonable. And it was only a question of whether there's enough market there and whether there's enough pain there. It's very unique to this company. So we started like that, out of a customer expressing very explicit pain, which is great. You always want to start companies when you have the first customer in your back pocket already.
And how did you come up with the name Tipalti?
Oren and myself were thinking about names. He was throwing some names, I was throwing some names, and one day I was at my home, and a friend came to visit. The friend is not from the technology space. He's an artist, a sculptor. That's what he does. And he asked me how are things going with the company, with the new company I was starting. I said, it's great. The need is obvious. I know what I want to do. We have already 2 customers by then, or 2 prospects, and everything was great. The only thing that was missing was a name for the company. So he sat in our sofa and kind of pinched his forehead for, it looked like long, but maybe it was 3 or 4 minutes, and then said Tipalti. And Tipalti in Hebrew means I took care of it. It was great because it really encompassed the vision that we already had back then to really take ownership of the whole process and take a very, very complex, involved process away from the accounts payable team and solve it completely and take complete ownership. So Tipalti was very fitting.
But interesting that the domain was still available.
Yeah, because it's a word in Hebrew. It's very unlikely that this word would be picked up. But yeah, the domain was not taken, which is always one of the considerations when you pick a company name. Yeah.
Let's talk about the business model of Tipalti. You said before that you're targeting mass markets, so like mass payment payments. What is the biggest difference in terms of payment providers if you are looking at PayPal, for example, and then looking at Tipalti?
Okay, so usually when people talk about payments, they think, how do I get money into my business? So PayPal does that, and Braintree, and Stripe, and Square, and Chase Payment Tech, and there are many companies who help businesses sell and get the money from the buyers into the company. Tipalti is really on the opposite side. So our customers are businesses that have many suppliers and need to pay them. So if you're an advertising network, you place ads on thousands of websites, and at the end of the month, you need to pay all those thousands of websites. So this is the major difference, that we are focused on paying out, while most of the payments world is focused on getting payments on mobile, on a website, on wherever that may be. And in that space of paying out, we are very unique. We take that holistic approach that I said. It's a suite approach. We solve payments is one component of a suite of challenges and solutions to these challenges that we provide, and we are very unique there. We are kind of the only game in town.
And are you also providing some kind of recommendations for selecting some other suppliers, for example, that might be even better?
It's not relevant for the way. Sometimes we are asked about, so companies do need to get paid in, and we just do the payout. So when we are asked if we can do the pay-in, we don't. We are focused on the payout, and we will try to recommend pay-in solutions, but usually it's not in the scope of our work.
Yeah. And how's the revenue model working? So you said before that you are based on a transactional model.
Correct.
And how does it work?
So there are several components to our pricing. We can divide it into three groups: the SaaS, so monthly subscription or pay-per-unit fee, the transaction fees, and currency conversion fees. So if you are sending 1,000 payments, one payment would be a PayPal, and another would be a Swift wire, and another would be a local bank transfer, and a prepaid debit card, and a check, and there will be a mix. Each one of those payment methods carry a cost, and either you as the payer bear the cost of the transaction, or as most of our customers do, you pass the cost of the transaction to the recipient. You offer them a large selection so they can choose low cost or high cost payment methods, but it's up to them to pay for that. The other component is the currency conversion. Again, the payee may choose to get paid in US dollars or can choose to get paid in a foreign currency. It's up to them to choose, but they bear the cost. If they choose, let's say the advertising network pays $1,000, but the guy on the other side wants to get paid in euros, then they say, okay, let Tipalti convert it for you, but you carry the cost for that. And the SaaS, there's a monthly fee, and there's different components carry fees, different fees. So we have an invoice processing fee, we have KYC, know your customer fee. If you want to use these are all optional modules, and there's a basic monthly service fee that we charge.
And from a technology perspective, what is the hardest thing you had to solve? Is it payments? Is it some other part of your suite?
There are many challenges. We are really a financial institution, right? We are a licensed financial institution. So the challenges we face come from different aspects. The breadth of the problem is the number one challenge. So we, as I said, we took a suite approach. We want to do tax compliance. We don't want to do AML compliance. We want to do payments. We want to do a host of things. We want to integrate with ERP systems, communicate with the payees. There are a host of challenges. The breadth of the problem is the big challenge. We're investing heavily in engineering for 5 years now, and we're not near complete. And that's the basic challenge. Then, working in the banking space, in the financial space, has its own set of challenges. There are significant compliance, regulatory, licensing challenges that you need to face. Banks are not very startup friendly. It's not their cup of tea usually. So there are challenges there. They're not very fast. They're not very techy. So yeah, we have our work cut out for us. Yeah.
And what made you choose to go for the rough suite and not focus on like 2 or 3 problems?
When that person that I told you in the beginning described to me his pain, that was the pain I saw. He said, this is what I do. And I actually sat with him for half a day in the office, literally seeing what he was doing, what his day was. So he was logging into his bank user interface and chatting with his support people and doing all that stuff. And I understood what's the other extreme. So that was one extreme, doing everything manually, the president of the company, logging into a terminal, trying to send wires. It was ridiculous. And I knew what the other end. And he did express all the pains. He said W-9 processing was a major part of their support efforts, and reconciliation and money laundering, all that. He expressed all those pains, and the next customer expressed literally the same pain. So I understood the commonality, and the commonality was we are in the business of doing something. We are an ad network and we'll focus on ad networking. Or we are an e-commerce platform. We'll focus on e-commerce. Please take all that away from us. We're not interested in that. It's a necessary evil. We know that's the core of the business for the other side. They want to get paid, but this is not our core competency. If you can take all that away, you'd make us happy. And that's what we do. We take all that away. Taking all that away means building a suite that addresses all of the pains that are unsolved.
And how did you acquire, let's say, their first 50 customers?
So the first year, I was working alone. I was the only employee in the company. I was writing the initial code for the platform and soliciting customers myself. And my co-founder. My co-founder is a very well-connected individual. So I think out of the first 4 customers, 3 were introductions that he got, and 1 was a high school friend of mine that made the introduction. There's nothing like having a good network and good friends. So yeah, the first 2 were immediately in the first few weeks that we just, before we even decided to make the company, the first few companies we talked about the pain were already saying, we have that pain, sign us up. The next one followed shortly after, and the 4th one a few months later. These were the first few customers. They were in Israel. We were obviously, for practicality, we were focused on Israel. After the first year, I recruited the first employee here in the Bay Area, an acquaintance from past life. And he started going after potential domestic customers. And we knew that we were focused on the advertising network and affiliate networks. And there were 2 major exhibitions, AdTech, that there were 2 events, AdTech East and AdTech West, and Affiliate Summit. There's Affiliate Summit East, Affiliate Summit West. And we just went to these events, and our prospective customers were aligned in booths one after the other, and we just went booth by booth and said, hello, we are Tipalti, we are making payments, yada yada. And we got, this is how the first few dozen customers came through these efforts.
Oh.
By now, this was all true until about a year ago, where we did all outbound, all direct sales solicitation of new customers. Since last year, we have our chief marketing officer join us over a year ago. I forget exactly when he joined, but he was the VP marketing for NetSuite, which sells to similar customers, similar decision makers. And by now, more than 50% of our business comes from inbound. Okay. So people already know of us and already know that they're interested and reach out to us.
But in the first place, you started with a target segment or target customer segment of advertisers and
advertising network.
Did you add any other customer segments? And if yes, when and why?
Why? Usually random, usually anecdotal. So we will go to an event, let's say Affiliate Summit, we will go to AdTech initially and see all the names there. Then we will look, where do these companies go to other events? We'll come across Affiliate Summit. So we'll go to Affiliate Summit, and then we'll see, it's actually for affiliate networks. It's not exactly what we do. It's a different segment. Okay, let's go after that segment. And then we ourselves were using Odesk. Odesk is a marketplace. So it was obvious we're a user of Odesk. We know what a marketplace is. Let's go after marketplaces. So we'd look for marketplaces and find some marketplaces. Most recently, e-commerce, which we confused marketplace with e-commerce. There was one customer we reached out. We thought they were a marketplace, but they were really an e-commerce platform. And we understood, how did we neglect e-commerce? That's an obvious market for us. So it's really endless. There are so many markets, just the low-hanging fruit. E-commerce, I think, is a great market for us. So are all the others. So it's sometimes it's very planned and strategic, but many times it's just anecdotal,
That's good. Let's talk about the advice section. So what advice could you give first-time entrepreneurs?
I think first-time entrepreneurs would rather work with, not be alone. So I think Tipalti I started alone, but it was my fourth or fifth endeavor, and I was able to do everything alone. I was able to solicit customers and do finances and fundraise and do the technical part. But that's not first time. First time, I'm supporting two first-time entrepreneurs, and both are grateful for the fact that there are two. That one is dealing more with the technical part, one is dealing more with the outside part, and there's a lot of support system that it's hard to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So that support system, for me, maybe my support system is my co-founder. So we are two entrepreneurs. I'm not myself here, but I think working as a team initially is very important.
I think one thing is very interesting, because you are similar like a financial institute, and you are working with regulatory stuff, which is totally not the case for most of the startups.
Right.
What advice could you give in this regard? How startups could work with regulators?
So again, many things in life are anecdotal and random. I like to say, I'm not sure it's true, but I like to say that had I known today all the challenges and the compliance and regulatory work that is required, I might have not started Tipalti. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not true. But the lesson is that don't be afraid. Even if it's not typical, going into the financial space as a startup, small myself, I think Elon Musk is now building satellites and flying them to space. Think it's okay to think big. Don't be afraid of things that seem unnatural. So maybe it's unnatural to think that you're going to fly satellites to space like Elon Musk does, and maybe small us, it's unreasonable to think that you will play within the financial institution space. It's all doable. The highest the mountain, the more barriers you build. Maybe it's harder to climb it, but you're building more barriers, you're becoming more special. I think by now, 5 years later, we've built so many barriers, and we're so unique in what we do that I don't fear competition that much. Obviously, it's always good to be on your toes with competition, but I think that we're very, very well positioned because of all the assets and all the mountains we've climbed in the last 5 years. So regulatory sounds like something which is not startup friendly, and it's not startup friendly, but it's also not a wall. Just literally on Monday, I spoke with a regulator of one of the states. There was a challenge for us, and the regulator was very accommodating. He didn't want to be between us and our business. He said, "Oh, I understand what your issue is, and offer the way to work together on resolving it." So it's not always the case. There are many times they are rigid, but don't be afraid. Just it's surmountable. Many times it's surmountable.
And what would be your advice on creating a competitive advantage?
You are concerned with a competitive advantage if you came into the market too late. Right? If you are coming to the hot market, then you should be very concerned with competitive advantage, because it's hot and everyone is there. When we started Tipalti, it was a very, very cold market. Fintech, I don't think the word fintech existed that time, and even some of our investors used terminology that described what we do in less than flattering way. They liked what we do, but they said, "You're dealing with what everyone else doesn't want to deal with." And really? Is that what I do? I thought I had a lot of passion. It's payments and all that, but I like the problem solving aspect of entrepreneurship. So deal with problems. If you are solving a problem for a customer that is unsolved, then you're already building your competitive advantage, because now you're solving something unique, and keep on addressing that problem. There are several ways to have a competitive advantage. One is on the product side, which I think we are largely there. We are building just a very, very rich and robust product that helps our customers. The other is being a first mover. So you have companies that develop products that are not very technological. There's no rocket science in many of the unicorns of the world, but they just were first to the market. So just do it. If you found a problem, go fast, go strong, and focus on solving a problem to your customers, and the differentiation will come from that, either from being first to market or from building a web solution for your customers.
Great. Chen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And next time you're thinking about starting a company and you are worried about, I'm not an expert in this domain, don't worry. Chen is a very good example of, even if you don't know the market, if you are able to identify a customer problem and execute on that, you might have a great startup. Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.